Well, I'm going to be upfront about this. This is a backup to a video I wanted to make this Wednesday. However, it involved a set of 2 VHSs. I've got the first one here, but still waiting for the second one to arrive. When that does come, I will make the video I wanted to make now. But enough of the shoulda-beens. Let's talk about the here and now. James Bond. I figure with the mod project, as well as the video games I've done in this channel, I don't think I've talked a whole lot about the movies that inspired the games. And, well, this is the fun thing about the James Bond community is there are a lot of people that have a lot of different hills to die upon. People will say that what may be considered the worst may be considered the best. So it seems like no two rankings are ever the same. And, well, this is my 2 cents, as well as my perspective. Without further ado, let's get right into this, shall we? Dr. No, the one that started it all. In more ways than one. Obviously, I knew about the Bond franchise, but aside from maybe my oldest brother or cousins watching a movie here and there and me sitting on that watching session, I never really took the time to see what the series had to offer. And this was my launching point. I picked up this copy at a thrift store for a whopping 79 cents. It was really the cover that sold me. Not only knowing that this was the first, but there was like a very interesting, mysterious air to this cover that I just never really saw in other Bond movies. But then again, by the time my cousins as well as my oldest brother had their collection, it was all the modern DVDs and, well, the cover art is just the standard Bond actor going like, not really a whole lot of variety. But the CBS Fox version, that's where you get the variety. And, well, even on top of that, it even got me into these much older VHS tapes, because there are no commercials. But regardless, though, I picked this one up in the summertime, and as such, I always associate this movie with summer memories. Every summer, I make it a point to watch this movie at least once, preferably on Laserdisc, because I have the ability to do that. One of these days, I would love to be able to watch this movie on the capacitance electric disc system, or Betamax if I could ever find a working player. Regardless of which format, I think this is a fantastic movie. And it doesn't take me long to start humming, "Underneath the mango tree, my honey and me, come watch for the moon." It's the unofficial, official theme of the movie, and I love it. A tier. Well, I love it. There are just more that I watch more often. From Russia with Love. This is the movie I've seen the most, next to The Spy Who Loved Me, obviously. This is one of the few James Bond movies that feels like a direct sequel. And on top of that, I love how challenging it is. First 3 or 4 times watching this was just to understand the story. But after that, was enjoying an espionage thriller unlike, well, really any other in the Bond series. I also cite this movie whenever I talk about the death of cover designs. So, as I mentioned, the capacitance electric disc system, this is what the cover of that version looks like. Now take a look at what the Blu-ray version looks like. Now tell me, which movie would you rather watch? S tier. Goldfinger. Often hailed as one of the greatest Bond adventures. What I love about it personally is the idea that we as the audience are discovering the plot along with Bond. I always preferred this method of storytelling rather than you already know what the evil villain's plan is, and then it's like, ooh, is Bond going to be smart enough to be able to piece together everything to foil the dastardly villain? Dastardly? What am I, like a 1940s radio host? What else is there to say? Great henchman, great villain, great scheme, great Bond girl, great theme song, and even a spectacular battle at the end of the film. And this is one of the few instances where I love the modern cover. This, I feel like, represents the mood of the film perfectly. It's a lot like Sean Connery leaned up against that Aston Martin. It's like a good of yours just kind of pulled up to your house and he's like, "You ready to have some fun tonight? All you just have to do is just get into the car, have some fun." And that's probably the best word to describe this movie. Fun. A tier. Well, I like it a lot, and it made a really good ROM hack of GoldenEye. There are just a few others that I like a bit more. Thunderball. This was actually the first Bond movie that I ever saw. It's one of those things I could picture very vividly, so it's just me and my oldest brother. We're just kind of sitting around, it's the weekend or whatnot, when he just kind of leans over and he says, "Hey, you want to watch Thunderball?" Which for me, I'm just like, "What's that?" After he explained to me that it was a Bond film, I'm just like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds like fun." It was recorded off a program called
15 Days of 007 on the Superstation. Brought to you by Circuit City. Come in, look around, get inspired. Circuit City. Imagine that.
And I feel like that little promo should tell you how old it is. I'm not really sure if I ever really watched the whole thing, but that's just one of those scenes I remember, and I was there with him to watch a fair bit of the movie with him. While the nostalgia is strong in this one, it really doesn't help its case. This is one of those movies where the more I watch it, the worse it gets. D tier. However, that's not to say that there aren't things I do like about this movie. I don't know what film stock they used, but I love the color scheme of this movie. And I know that sounds like such a weird thing to say, but I don't know. I just loved the presentation of this movie, even if I didn't really like the movie itself. And I will also agree that Goldfinger and Thunderball is peak Sean Connery as James Bond. And plus the other big thing, Fiona Volpe. Now that is a femme fatale. Right up there with Famke Janssen. Since I mentioned this...
15 Days of 007 on the Superstation. Brought to you by Ricochet High-Speed Mobile Access.
I do have a bit of a fun story to add on to it as well. So, it was also during those recorded off of TV specials that I was introduced to Goldfinger. And me, being like 7, 8 at the time, I very much thought that Goldfinger actually had a finger of gold, and he literally had the Midas touch. So when I saw Jill Masterson there on the bed painted in gold, I thought Goldfinger used his superpower to kill her by transforming her into gold. That certainly sounds like a very different movie now, doesn't it? But that's 2 movies ago. Let's move on to You Only Live Twice. If you were to ask me what my favorite James Bond film is, this is it. Exotic locations, breathtaking cinematography, a fantastic musical score, the ultimate climax of the volcano base, and the ultimate reveal of Ernst Stavro Blofeld. And I will admit, there's still a bit of an 8-year-old in me that's still just like, what? You mean you're firing little rockets at people? That is... I just absolutely love this movie. But if I'm going to complain about one thing, it's Sean Connery. I wish we could have had Thunderball Sean Connery in this movie. Then maybe there'd be a lot more people that would put this in their number 1 as well. So, I'm not sure if it's a controversial opinion or not, but yes, this is without a doubt my favorite James Bond movie. I don't want to say that everything from here is downhill. I'm just saying that this is my personal favorite. S tier. On Her Majesty's Secret Service. If you were to ask me what Bond movies you think would be up for an Oscar, I would say On Her Majesty's Secret Service, as well as another one, which we will get to later. I absolutely adore this film. It's really amazing that it's probably one of the longest Bond films at, well, let me see what the time is actually. 2 hours and 15 minutes. I thought it was 2.5 hours, but regardless, it does not feel like it's that long. There is so much story. There is very quick edits that it only feels like you're watching maybe an hour feature. It feels like there is no wasted time here. For me, it's a tradition to watch this every December, and much like Dr. No, on Laserdisc. Because I have the ability to do so. And look, it's the deluxe letterbox edition. Yeah. I will admit, watching this movie is a little bittersweet when I get to the ending of it, because I would have loved for the next film to continue in the direction that this one did, or heck, even continue in this direction for like the next few films even, regardless of if George Lazenby was going to be in the part or not. S tier. Diamonds are forever. From my mini review of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you could probably tell how I feel about Diamonds Are Forever. In ways, it feels like a betrayal. The pre-title sequence is what I wanted the whole film to be. A Bond that is just out for revenge, destroying everything in his path until he can get to his ultimate goal. And that's all resolved within like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And what we have is a very campy adventure. If I can get past the idea that this is supposed to be a sequel of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I can see it as a bit of a fun, goofy adventure, but On Her Majesty's Secret Service was just such a good film that this is such a disappointing follow-up. C tier. Live and Let Die. This is another seasonal film. I like to watch it every October. If it wasn't for the boat chase sequence, or at least an editing of the boat chase sequence, this would easily be an S tier film. But for me, it just goes on for way, way too long, and I feel it's pretty impressive when you can make the idea of a boat jumping over land appear boring. So because of that, I put it in A tier. But if some smart person on the internet is able to edit down that boat sequence to be a bit more adrenaline pumping and a bit more tense, yeah, I would definitely put this in S tier. The Man with the Golden Gun. I was hot off the heels of what I consider to be the worst Bond film. It honestly left me kind of depressed, wondering if the series had any more good films after that or whatnot. I didn't watch them in order. I just kind of got them whenever I was able to find them at thrift stores, or if ever I was able to locate all those programs from the
15 Days of 007 on the Superstation is brought to you by FTD. Nobody turns feelings into flowers faster. FTD. Be a hero.
So, when I got to The Man with the Golden Gun, this was able to get me out of that depressive slump. It's by no means a fantastic film, but after that particular movie I saw, it was nice to see that there were still some fun Bond films. Like I said, not great, but I enjoyed it. It gave me hope that better things were to come. B tier. The Spy Who Loved Me. With how much I've talked about this film, I think I'll just give you a fun story instead. So, it seems like young boys have like one of 4 different categories they can pick from for interests that they have. So you got like dinosaurs, construction material, trucking, or astronomy. Well, I was into shipwrecks. Seriously, there was like a big book at the library that was all about what the Titanic would have looked like, what's been recovered from it, as well as how it sank. There were a few follow-up books as well called The Sisters of the Titanic, which sank under mysterious circumstances and people have been able to find all the same. So, I was reading this Titanic book when another kid leans over and he's just like, "Hey, did you ever watch the movie?" I immediately said yes, as the first thing that came into my mind was Jaws sinking in Atlantis. And I thought that was the Titanic going down. Of course, after that conversation, I talked to my parents about it, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, this is the Titanic movie." And, well, since I was in elementary school at the time, they had to kind of cut out the more adult sections, but I was still able to get the story all the same. So, yeah, there's probably a connection you would have never thought of. James Cameron's Titanic and The Spy Who Loved Me. Can I put it anywhere else? Moonraker. This was also one of the movies I watched after that depressive slump I was talking about, and I gotta say, people are way too harsh on this movie. I obviously loved it a lot more than The Man with the Golden Gun, but even on top of that, this is the triumphant finale of Ken Adams' set design. You also have a beautiful musical score. My favorite Bond girl, Holly Goodhead. And yes, I know she probably has the most raunchiest name there is, but Michael Lonsdale as Hugo Drax. This movie just has so many good things going for it, but everybody just sees it as, oh, Bond jumped the shark. It was really going downhill unless they course corrected, but dang it, this is a fun film. I don't care. I love it. I don't care what anybody says. This is an S tier movie. For your eyes only. F tier. This is the movie that put me in the depressed slump that I needed The Man with the Golden Gun and Moonraker to be able to put faith back into the idea that there are still some good Bond movies I haven't seen yet. This movie is absolutely dull. The main mission is to recover this mythical MacGuffin. They get it, and then immediately destroy it. Great! Thank you for wasting 2 hours and 8 minutes of my life. In fact, to kind of put it into perspective for you, this movie actually had still in the saran wrap. The only time I unwrapped it is because I knew there was a scene in this that echoed Live and Let Die the book. That's when I had to open it and put up the little scene for comparison. Other than that, it was just kind of sitting in my collection because I'm just like, well, I hate to have an incomplete collection, but I don't want to watch it. But I did end up rewatching it when I did the book review of For Your Eyes Only. And I gotta say, it's still my least favorite Bond film, but at least I walked out of it saying, I get it, but I still don't like it. Octopussy. Oh yeah, now this is the good stuff. This is another one I saw on the
15 Days of 007 on the Superstation is brought to you by Reese'n Candy, chocolate caramel and rich chocolate.
And I always wanted to see more of it. And yes, that is a play on words because Roger Moore is in this movie. But that was always the problem. Whenever I would ask my oldest brother or my cousins about watching this movie, I would just kind of get the Octopussy. Yeah. Where did they come up with that name? Yeah. I know what you mean by that. I just wanted to see more of the movie. When I rewatched it again during my journey through all the Bond films, I can say I have great taste.
S tier. Never say never again.
I'm not gonna lie, this movie was better than I expected. The only time I saw it was at a watch party with a whole bunch of friends. And I loved the energy that the movie brought to that watch party. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a good movie, but I could definitely say it very much fits that sort of atmosphere of just getting together with a whole bunch of friends and just kind of passively watching it.
C tier. A View to a Kill.
I feel like this movie delivers the same bizarre energy that Diamonds Are Forever brings to the table, but unlike Diamonds Are Forever, I don't feel like I've been cheated out of a potentially superior film. Although I still give it the same rank as Diamonds Are Forever.
Also C tier. The Living Daylights.
I'm not gonna lie, Dalton's reputation kept me away from this film for a while. And by reputation, it's more about the idea that he took Bond to probably the darkest place that any Bond has ever been. I feel like Daniel Craig got pretty close, but Dalton I feel like is just a little bit darker. So, what actually had me come around to The Living Daylights? Well, much like how The Spy Who Loved Me 64 is being based off of that movie, there was, well, they're just having a hard time finding people to work on it, a mod for The Living Daylights 64. And I was asked to kind of do a little bit of consulting work, maybe come up with like a few level designs or whatnot. So I'm like, if I'm going to try to help out this project, I probably should see what the movie is about. And I'm very thankful for that project because this movie is fantastic.
S tier. License to Kill.
And this was the other reason I stayed away from The Living Daylights. I know I'm going to be ridiculed to no end, but I am legitimately afraid of this movie. I got through the pre-title sequence alright, but I just had to stop the movie after we see the skinned remains of Felix's wife thrown into a bag and used as shark bait. It was just too much for me, and I've never given the movie a chance after that. People tell me it's fantastic, and I do know the basic story beats of it, as there was kind of a toying around of a License to Kill 64 mod project, but never really happened. And for all of you wondering, when Felix says to watch out for sharks in The Spy Who Loved Me, that is not a reference to License to Kill. That was actually a bit of an homage to the novel Live and Let Die, which that scene is very much based upon. But also just the idea that, well, Stromberg's assistant gets eaten by a shark, so it's like, hey, watch out for the shark, foreshadowing that fight with Jaws in Atlantis. So, License to Kill. Ugh. Probably the other big thing about it, and you might find it humorous, I don't know, but I remember I had a very distinct, disturbing nightmare about this movie where I dreamed that I watched it. Sanchez was like on board this airplane, just like a passenger deck, when he realizes that the person sitting next to him is about to betray him. So he takes out his gun, which is like a crossbow or something, hits the guy's forehead, which then nails it to the ceiling, with the guy's spinal cord just kind of doing a bit of a dance while still attached to the head. I know for a fact the movie doesn't go that dark, but I don't know if I'll ever find the courage to be able to watch this movie. So,
F for Fear.
Intense fear.
Goldeneye.
This one also has quite a fair bit of nostalgia for me. So, I played the game like nobody's business. Occasionally I still play the game like nobody's business, especially with all the fun mod projects. But regardless, played the game like crazy. So, for like my 9th or 10th birthday, My oldest brother gives me a VHS copy of the movie. And this is that exact copy. I remember my mind was completely blown. I'm just like, wait a minute, this is based off of a movie? And then as I'm watching, I'm just like, oh, there's the runway, there's the dam, there's the facility. Oh, they got the surface. Oh, this is fantastic. I think I was just kind of blown away by how similar both were that I didn't really pay that much attention to the story. And, well, my oldest brother also did act as a bit of a liaison for my parents, fast forwarding or blocking my eyes whenever the sex scenes came on. But, yeah, as I got older, I learned to appreciate the fantastic story, the rather unique soundtrack to this movie, and, well, even if there was no game and this was just a movie, I still think it would be just as great of a film.
S tier. Tomorrow Never Dies.
Another fun film with the right ingredients. The main thing I remember about this movie was the first time I saw it was at my grandparents' place. They lived in one of those retirement villages and whatnot, so it was rather interesting that me, as well as my sister, went to the local library and we found it. I don't really remember liking the movie that much, but I don't really remember watching it either, but I just remember picking it up in that library next to a whole bunch of Humphrey Bogart films. It just seems so out of place, but it's like, oh, they got Bond here, let's watch it. But all the same, fun. It is a fun movie. And may I also mention that the mod project is actually a fair bit more fun than the PS1 game.
A tier. The World Is Not Enough.
For some odd reason, people skip over this one, which I think is a real shame, as it has a lot of story beats that, well, I can't say I've ever really seen in any other Bond film. I mean, a female villain. Haven't seen that done outside of this film. And even then, the idea of M getting captured. We kind of go into that a little bit with Skyfall, but I don't know, this one just felt like a much more unique story.
A tier. Die Another Day. C tier.
Gotta say, any day of the week, I'd pick this over Thunderball or For Your Eyes Only. It's by no means a good film, but it's at least entertainingly bad. Much like Never Say Never Again, I feel like this is just a fun movie to just watch with a whole bunch of friends and just passively watch it. Maybe even doing like a Mystery Science Theater 2000 reenactment with this sort of movie. Other than that, I figured it'd be fun to note. Forgot that this one actually opens up. Well, that's new. But anyway, as a way to just kind of throw in a fun perspective, I remember when this movie first went on sale. And no, I did not pick this movie up at Walmart the first day it came out. Maybe I saw it at a Walmart, but anyway. This was one of the last films I remember where you had the option to either pick it up on DVD or VHS. It was the bit of an end of a unique era that I'm not really sure how many people remember at this point.
Casino Royale.
I gotta be honest, this is a movie I have to be in the mood to watch. Generally, when I watch a Bond film, I want a fun adventure. And this isn't really a fun film. It's meant to be a darker, grittier story. Sometimes I am in the mood for that. And when I am, hey, this is a pretty good film. But if I want a fun movie, I'd rather watch Octopussy. And also one other fun thing, if you ever get the chance, see what this movie looks like when you watch it entirely in black and white. Honestly, I think it looks great.
I put it in B, as I need to be in the right mindset to watch it, but when I am in that mindset, it's a great movie. Quantum of Solace.
Same as Die Another Day and Never Say Never Again. Not a good film, but Honestly, I'd say it's a bit more fun than Casino Royale, but generally it's one of those movies that I think is just fun to watch with like a group of friends very passively. However, they should know what the story of Casino Royale is first, otherwise they're going to be a little confused.
C tier. Skyfall.
This is the other Oscar nominee.
S tier.
It also feels probably the most accessible out of any of the Daniel Craig films. Not only do you not need to know what the story is up to that point, but it brings back the element of fun that I love to watch in the James Bond films. Sure, there's still that grit of the Daniel Craig performance, but I don't know, I feel like it's able to balance it out. It's a fun movie, but it's also a serious movie. And this is going to be a bit of a fun comparison. I think back to this one episode of Jimmy Neutron where he accidentally creates the world's greatest candy as he's able to put all these different ingredients together in such a way that people need it. And I feel like that's one of the major reasons that Skyfall is highly regarded, not only for me, but for other Bond fans. And also, I think it's a bit of a return to form. I mean, it's fun to have a very interesting villain as well as an interesting plan. I feel like that was something that was very much missing from Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. Of course, I can't necessarily blame that for Casino Royale, as it's very much intended to be that way. Bond is not supposed to immediately rise up the ranks to figure out who the chief is working for. But, well, I do very much like the chief, but I have a very hard time taking him as a Bond villain. I see him a bit more as like a henchman, while Walter White I see as a villain. But let's skip on that hot take, so go to the next Daniel Craig film.
Spectre.
It may surprise you to know that this was the first Bond film that I ever saw in theaters. And this is one of the big things I will say. Anything that generally what I've placed in the C tier or the S tier are movies that I would love to see in the theaters as well. This one, honestly, I put it in the same class as Thunderball. It gets just a little bit worse with each time I watch it.
D tier. No Time to Die.
I saw this one in theaters too, and I actually ended up doing a review of it. Well, I'll just do a bit of a recap here. So, generally, when I step out of the theater after watching an action movie, I want to be like, yeah, you know, that was so much fun. The way it was like, and it was like, oh, and it was just like, oh, that was just fantastic. And then the ending, it's like, oh, and then he's like shaken, not stirred, and it's just like, oh, that's fantastic. When I walked out of this film, it's like a dead body just fell on top of me. I'm just like, what was that? Why do I feel empty? I'm gonna get the idea that that's the story that this movie wanted to tell, but I wanted to, when I watch a Bond film, I want to have fun action, not something that's gonna emotionally disturb me. Aside from the emotional disturbance, the main things that stuck out to me was the fight in Cuba. It was nice to be able to have a sexy female co-agent again. And, yeah, I heard a lot of people saying that whatever the name of that character should get her own spin-off, and I am all for that. Especially if we could get just as fun of an action scene as we got in No Time to Die. There was also, I forget what her name is, basically the replacement, shall we say. She had these very unique sunglasses, which, well, if they probably didn't cost $300, I'd love to own. I'd probably pay maybe like $20 at the most. And of course, the ending.
C tier.
But in watching it again, I honestly kind of wish there was a tie-in video game for this. Or maybe a few GoldenEye mod maps of it. Don't look at me to make it. I don't do requests. I'd rather somebody else take care of that project, but honestly, I think it'd be fantastic to see in video game form the pre-title sequence, the standoff in the jungle, as well as the fight in Cuba, as well as the ending in Sapphin's factory. I was about to say Sappho, but that was one of the villains from the Everything or Nothing cooperative campaign. I could probably reminisce about that one for a while. I'll just simply say that I was very much kind of a keeper of the book because I was too young to be any good at the game. So it was really my sister as well as my cousin. They were able to 100% that cooperative adventure. And from what I hear, that is no easy feat. But hey, we had the Prima strategy guide. But that's video games. Maybe I'll do a tier list of Bond video games. I don't know, you interested? But
this is my James Bond tier list. I'd be very curious to see how yours looks. What would you put where? Where do you disagree with me a little bit? Where do you disagree with me a lot? I'm always curious to hear other people's thoughts. I find the James Bond movies are a lot like episodes of The Twilight Zone. Because, for the most part, they don't really connect to each other. It just all describes what taste each person has. They each bring something a little bit different to the table. And that's one of the things I love most about the James Bond series.
And you'll notice that I skipped out on the 50s Barry Nelson Casino Royale as well as the spoof Casino Royale. I have not seen either of them, although I will admit, Peter Sellers being in a James Bond spoof, I honestly think has potential. As honestly, I think the Pink Panther Strikes Again very much feels like one of those spoofs. Dreyfus has become a Bond villain, and Clouseau is basically a bumbling James Bond. Probably one of the scenes I love most about it is Dreyfus is holding the world captive for Clouseau to be eliminated, so all the countries of the world are putting out their best assassins, and just by Clouseau being an idiot, he's able to dispatch all of but 2 of them. In fact, I believe they even called up the US president, who just wakes up in bed with his wife, and he's just like, holy cow, no wonder Dreyfus wanted this guy dead, he's a one-man army. But the whole time, he's just being an idiot, dodging all the bullets while they keep killing each other. But yeah, if you only knew about the Steve Martin Pink Panther movies, do yourself a favor and watch the Peter Sellers movies. Although, start with the sequel, A Shot in the Dark, because the first Pink Panther movie is, well, it's about like maybe 2 hours, and only about like 30 minutes of it is fun to watch. It's a very dull movie, but wow, okay, now I'm really distracted. It's not often I get to talk about the Pink Panther movies, I'm sorry. So, that is my ranking of the James Bond movies. I hope sometime soon I'll be able to make the video that this was meant to add a bit more extra time for this other package to arrive. But regardless of what happens, till next time, keep having fun.
15 days of 007 on the Superstation, brought to you by Dell. Visit DellForMe.com to see how Dell is helping you get the most out of your PC.